Hey there. You know, we live in the 21st century, a world that looks shiny, connected, fast, and oh so modern. But if you strip it down to the essentials, there's still one ancient tool that drives almost everything we do. No, it's not fire. No, it's not the wheel. And no, sadly, it's not Wi-Fi either. It's money. And I'm not talking about money in the sense of greed, luxury cars, or designer shoes. I'm talking about something way more subtle: the psychological weight of money. Think about it. When your pockets are empty, when your bank app shows a number that makes you want to hide your phone under the pillow, you don't feel confident, do you? You feel nervous, restless, almost like the world is closing in on you. I've been there. And trust me, it doesn't exactly make you a creative genius. But let's flip it around. Imagine opening your account and seeing 4 digits, or even better, 5. Suddenly, the air feels lighter. You stand taller. You breathe deeper. You feel like you can afford to make a mistake, like you've got room for trial and error. And that's the real magic. Money gives us something much bigger than objects. It gives us psychological safety. And here's the funny part. One coin in your wallet won't make you rich, but it does something strange to your brain. It whispers, "You're not completely broke, there's hope." And that tiny seed of hope, that's often enough to fuel ideas, courage, even a little bit of creativity. So today, I want to explore money not as a number on a screen, but as a modern psychological tool, a force that shapes the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we live. And to start, let's look at the most fundamental thing it gives us: a sense of safety. Because without that, all the rest doesn't even matter. At its core, money isn't about numbers. It's about safety. It's about knowing that if your laptop suddenly dies, you don't need to sell your soul to afford a new one. It's about knowing that if you wake up with a toothache, you can call the dentist without first calculating whether you'll have to survive the rest of the month on instant noodles. This sense of security is invisible, but it's powerful. When you don't have it, every little thing feels like a potential disaster. You don't just worry about tomorrow, you worry about today, right now, this very second. Your brain goes into survival mode, and in survival mode, you're not thinking about growth, dreams, or creativity. You're just thinking, how do I get through the next 24 hours? Now compare that to when you do have security. Suddenly, your brain relaxes. You're not obsessively checking prices on basic groceries. You're not panicking when the bus is late, calculating if you can afford a taxi. You're calm. And from that calmness, confidence grows. It's ironic, really. People often say money can't buy happiness. And sure, technically, happiness doesn't come with the receipt, but let's be honest, money can buy peace of mind. And peace of mind is the foundation where happiness, creativity, and self-improvement can actually grow. Without that foundation, everything else collapses like a badly built Jenga tower. And here's the twist. It doesn't even have to be a fortune. You don't need millions to feel secure. Sometimes just having a little cushion, enough to cover a few mistakes, enough to know you won't starve if something goes wrong, is all it takes. That's when you stop living in fear and start actually living. So, if money at its core provides security, what's the next step? Well, once we feel safe, money starts to affect another part of us, our confidence. And trust me, that's where things get really interesting. Let's be real. Nothing boosts your confidence quite like knowing you can afford life. Think about the difference between walking into a cafe with €5 in your pocket versus walking in with 500. With 5, you're carefully scanning the menu, pretending you're just not that hungry, while praying your order doesn't max out your budget. With 500, you're like, extra shot of espresso? Make it 3. Throw in the croissant too. In fact, let's try that overpriced dessert I'd usually never touch. Money changes the way you carry yourself. It's not about arrogance, it's about certainty. You walk taller, you speak clearer, you stop apologizing for simply existing.
Even something as small as having a stable bank account can make you feel like you're in control of your life instead of being tossed around by it. Here's the funny thing. Confidence often gets mistaken for personality, when in reality, it's heavily influenced by circumstances. Sure, some people are naturally charismatic, but most of us, we feel a lot braver when we know we're not one broken washing machine away from financial ruin. And this confidence doesn't just affect how you feel about yourself. It shapes how others see you. People can smell insecurity. They can also sense stability. When you have that financial backbone, your energy changes. You're not desperate. You're not clinging. You're not constantly worried. And people respond to that. So, no, money can't buy you a new personality, but it can buy you the breathing space to express the personality you already have. And sometimes, that's exactly what makes all the difference. But here's where things get even deeper. Money isn't just about how we look at ourselves or how others look at us. It also fuels something more subtle, something creative. And that's what we'll explore next.
Here's a secret nobody tells you. Creativity often needs money. Sounds shallow, right? But think about it. When you're broke, your brain isn't thinking about writing a book, painting a picture, or starting a side project. It's thinking, how do I make it through this week without going broker? That survival mode doesn't leave much room for dreaming. But when you've got at least some financial breathing room, suddenly the ideas start flowing. You're not stuck obsessing over the price of bread. You're free to imagine, to create, to experiment. Money gives you the luxury of trying and failing, and that's where most great ideas are born. Ever notice how people with resources seem more creative? It's not because they're inherently smarter or more artistic. It's because they have the space to play. They can afford to fail. They can afford to experiment. They can say, you know what? Let me take a month and try this new thing. Even in everyday life, money fuels creativity. Cooking becomes more fun when you can buy better ingredients. Fashion becomes self-expression instead of survival when you can afford more than one pair of shoes. Dating becomes less stressful when you don't have to worry about whether you can cover dinner. And here's the kicker. Money doesn't just let you be more creative, it also multiplies your creativity. Because once you see you can create something, you start looking for ways to create even more. It's like money unlocks this part of your brain that says, wait a second, maybe I can build something bigger than just survival. So yeah, money might not buy happiness directly, but it sure as hell buys you the chance to make something meaningful out of your life. Now, if money fuels confidence and creativity, what else does it give us? The answer is freedom. And that's where this conversation gets really interesting.
Freedom. That's the word everyone chases, but almost no one defines. And honestly, in the 21st century, freedom has a price tag. Think about it. Freedom is the ability to say no without panicking. It's the power to walk away from a toxic job, a toxic partner, or even a toxic city because you've got the means to survive without them. Without money, you're stuck. With money, you've got options. Ever notice how the same situation feels completely different depending on your bank account? Let's say your boss yells at you on Monday morning. If you've got no savings, you swallow it, force a smile, and pray for payday. But if you've got a few months' worth of expenses sitting in your account, suddenly you're like, you know what? I don't need this drama. I can leave. That's freedom. Money doesn't solve every problem, but it gives you leverage, and leverage is everything. It lets you design your own schedule. It lets you choose who you spend time with. It even lets you decide how much stress you're willing to tolerate. Without it, you're forced into decisions you wouldn't make otherwise. And here's the ironic part. People often say, money doesn't buy freedom. True, money alone doesn't. But lack of money, that definitely buys slavery. To bills, to bosses, to bad decisions. So when we say money as freedom, it's not about yachts or private jets. It's about breathing space. The ability to say, I don't have to do this if I don't want to. That little sentence is worth more than 1,000,000 motivational quotes. Now, we've talked about confidence, creativity, and freedom. But there's one more thing money changes. Your sense of identity. And this is where it gets personal.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. Money shapes how we see ourselves and how others see us. We like to pretend it doesn't. We say things like, "Money doesn't define me," or "I'm more than my bank account." Sure, in theory, but let's be real. When you're broke, you don't just feel poor. You feel less valuable, less capable, less worthy. Even if no one says it out loud, you carry that weight every time you walk into a room. And when you have money, it's like slipping on a new version of yourself. Suddenly you stand taller, speak louder, and people pay more attention. Not because the cash made you smarter or funnier overnight, but because it gave you permission to act like you already mattered. It's almost scary how deeply money is tied to identity. Think about it. Most introductions start with, "What do you do?" And that's just code for, "How much do you probably make?" Your job, your clothes, your car, your vacations, all these things scream your financial story to the world, whether you want them to or not. But here's the kicker. Money doesn't just change how others label you, it changes how you label yourself. Have you ever noticed that when you're broke, you hesitate to dream big? Like, you stop applying for opportunities because you assume they're out of reach. You edit yourself down to the size of your wallet. On the flip side, when you have even a little cushion, your imagination expands. You start thinking, maybe I can travel. Maybe I can invest. Maybe I can try something risky because if it doesn't work out, I'll still be fine. That's not greed. That's identity unlocked. So yeah, money and identity are tied tighter than we'd like to admit. And that connection can either crush you or fuel you. Now, if money shapes identity, then what happens when you mix that identity with relationships? That's where things get really interesting.
Let's be brutally honest. Money can make or break relationships. On the surface, we like to say love is all about connection, trust, and shared values. And that's true, but it's also incomplete. Because try paying rent with shared values. Try going on vacation with trust. At some point, bills need to be paid, food needs to be bought, and the lights need to stay on. Love without money? It feels romantic in movies. In real life, it feels exhausting. And here's where it gets tricky. Money in relationships isn't just about survival. It's about power. Whoever controls the money often controls the dynamic. That's why couples fight about it more than almost anything else. It's not "you bought another coffee," it's "I feel like I don't have a say in our future." Money also acts like an invisible magnifying glass. If you're generous, having money makes you more generous. If you're selfish, money just amplifies that selfishness. If you're insecure, money might cover it for a while, but deep down, the cracks still show. And let's not forget dating. People judge financial stability faster than they judge personality. You could be kind, funny, attractive, but if you're broke, chances are someone's going to hesitate. Not because they're heartless, but because money signals stability. It signals safety. And deep down, most people don't just want love, they want safety too. But there's a flip side. When both people in a relationship feel financially secure, even just "okay, we're covered" secure, the connection gets lighter. Arguments shrink, the partnership feels more like teamwork and less like survival. So no, money doesn't buy love, but it does buy peace of mind. And peace of mind is what allows love to actually breathe. And if money affects our closest relationships this much, imagine what it does to the way we interact with the world around us.
Here's something we don't admit often. Money isn't just physical paper or numbers on a screen. It's emotional weight. It sits in your head even when it's not in your pocket. Think about it. When you're broke, the world feels heavier. A simple dinner invite from a friend feels like a burden instead of joy. Every notification from your bank app feels like a mini heart attack. You start counting coins. But what you're really counting is your self-worth. On the other hand, when you do have money, even a little, it feels like the universe suddenly gives you breathing room. You smile easier, you laugh louder, you even walk differently. And it's not because the money itself has magical powers.
It's because your brain finally feels safe. Psychologists call this cognitive bandwidth. When your basic financial needs aren't met, your brain spends so much energy stressing about survival that there's very little left for creativity, love, or growth. But when those needs are covered, your mind opens up. You think bigger. You dream bolder. You even take risks you wouldn't otherwise dare to take. That's why people often say money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys peace of mind. And peace of mind, that's the soil where happiness grows. But here's the tricky part. Money also messes with your identity. Some people tie their entire self-worth to the size of their bank account. They feel like a nobody if the number is small and a winner if it's large. And this trap is just as dangerous as being broke, because now your happiness is hostage to digits on a screen. So the real challenge is learning to carry money's weight without letting it crush you, to see it as fuel, not as your identity. And this brings us to an interesting question. If money shapes our emotions so much, how do we stop it from controlling us completely?
Money is like fire. If you control it, it cooks your food, warms your home, and lights your way. But if you lose control, it burns everything down. Here's the thing. Most people don't use money. They get used by it. They become trapped in a cycle of chasing, spending, and stressing. Their mood rises and falls with every paycheck, like a roller coaster they didn't agree to ride. True power comes when you flip the script. Instead of depending on money to tell you who you are, you make it serve your goals. You turn it into a tool, not a master. And that doesn't mean ignoring it, quite the opposite. It means creating systems so you don't constantly think about it. Budgeting, saving, investing. It's not about being boring or stingy. It's about buying yourself freedom from obsession. Think of it this way. If you always need money to feel okay, then you're not free. You're on a leash. But if you can step back, manage it wisely, and know that you'll be fine even when things dip, then you're the one holding the leash. And here's the secret. When you stop being dependent, money actually comes easier. Why? Because desperation pushes opportunities away, but calm confidence attracts them. Employers, clients, even people in general, they feel the difference between "I need this or I'll starve" and "I'd like this, but I'll be fine either way." With that being said, let's talk about the dark side of the money.
Of course, if money can build confidence, it can also destroy it. The dark side of money is when your self-worth becomes chained to the numbers in your bank account. If you've ever looked at someone else's lifestyle and thought, "I'm behind, I'm not enough, I should be earning more, driving better, living bigger," then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Money is a tool, but people often turn it into a scoreboard. And once that happens, you're no longer living for yourself. You're living to keep up with people you don't even like. Here's the paradox. The more you chase money for validation, the more insecure you become. Because there will always be someone richer, always a car faster, a house bigger, a vacation fancier. If your confidence depends on comparison, then it's not confidence. It's insecurity wearing an expensive suit. And this doesn't just apply to billionaires versus us regular people. Even among friends, money can turn into a silent competition. Who pays for dinner? Who buys the better gift? Who upgrades their phone first? It's ridiculous, but it happens. That's the trap, the dark side. You start believing your value as a human equals your wallet's weight, which means when your wallet is light, your self-worth feels empty too. But here's the truth. Money can buy options, not identity. You are not your bank balance. The sooner you separate the two, the freer you'll feel. If you want to apply these ideas to your own life, I also offer personalized one-on-one consultations. We can work together to create a step-by-step plan tailored to your situation, whether it's improving confidence, managing money, or making better decisions. Check the link in the description to book your session or contact me via email that is written down below too. So the challenge becomes this: how do we use money to build confidence without letting it define us?
Here's the thing. Money is powerful, but like fire, it can either keep you warm or burn your whole house down. Some people obsess over it to the point where their identity becomes tied to their bank account. Others go in the opposite direction, pretending that money doesn't matter, while secretly stressing every time they open their wallet. Both extremes are traps. The truth is, balance is key. Money should serve you, not own you. It's a tool, not a definition of your worth. When you recognize that, you stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. You stop measuring happiness only in digits, and you start seeing money as a way to support your life, not become your life. And let's be honest, there's nothing spiritual about pretending bills pay themselves. At the same time, there's nothing successful about working yourself into the ground for an extra zero that you won't even have the energy to enjoy. Balance is where the confidence lies. Enough financial stability to feel secure, and enough perspective to remember that who you are isn't written on a paycheck. This is why money is a mirror of your mindset. Here's the interesting twist. Money isn't just about numbers. It's a mirror. It reflects how you think, how you act, and how much you believe in yourself. Ever notice how two people can earn the exact same paycheck, but one feels constantly broke while the other feels in control? That's not about the paycheck. It's about the mindset. If you treat money as something that always slips away, it will. You'll find ways to waste it, or you'll avoid even looking at your bank account because you're afraid of what you'll see. But if you treat money as a partner, a tool that works with you, suddenly the game changes. This doesn't mean you need to be obsessed with saving every coin. It's more about respect. Respect for your effort, your time, and the value you're creating. Because let's be honest, money isn't just cash. It's the proof of your ability to solve problems, to contribute, to build. And when you see it that way, money becomes less about fear and more about freedom.
So, after everything we've discussed, here's the truth. Money is a tool, a mirror, and a source of both freedom and stress. It can boost your confidence or expose your insecurities. It can open doors or create new pressures. But at the end of the day, it doesn't define your worth. You define your worth. And here's a quote to remember. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Epictetus. Simple, timeless, and painfully true. Money is powerful, but perspective is even more powerful. So here's my final thought for you. Use money wisely. Respect it, but don't worship it. Let it be your tool, not your master. Focus on growth, on relationships, on learning, and let money support those goals, not replace them. If you found this video helpful, insightful, or even mildly entertaining, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more content on psychology, life, and personal growth, and share it with someone who could use a fresh perspective on money. Remember, you are more than your bank balance, and every small step you take toward balance, confidence, and freedom matters. See you in the next video.